Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Monica Bachchan. I'm a founder of Metrologic BMS. Today we are presenting Bridging Gap Between Steel Users and Producers. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the panel discussion, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. I will bring them up during the presentation and we will also have time for questions at the end. Always mention your company name and organization which you are representing and who would you like to address your questions to. Indian government has set a target of increasing the contribution of manufacturing output to GDP to 25% by 2025. The need today is to make India self-reliant for its requirements for capital goods, yellow goods, consumer products, automobile, etc. In this process, a lot of focus is required towards making India the global hub for all steel-intensive products. In this direction, India is on the right path with world's second largest steel production, based along with abundant affordable labor and friendly ease of doing business initiatives. National Steel Policy of 2017 has rightly acknowledged the need for expanding the steel capacity to 300 million ton by 2030. To serving the growing domestic demand within the country, the gap between the producers of steel consumers of steel has to be bridged to give the right direction to the demand fulfillment within the country. A collaborative approach is required where consumers and producers sit together to design and harness each other's potential to reduce India's dependency on imports and make it an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Major steel producers steel supply scheme to EEPC MSME members at international parity prices is an example of serving the domestic engineering industry with indigenous steel. More such steps are required in consumer durable segment or even high-end steel or stainless steel sector in near term. I would like to introduce today's expert panel to you all. Each panelist will get about 5 to 7 minutes to speak, and then we will begin with Q&A for audience. I'll tell you the order of the sequence of all the panelists. We will start with Mr. Arun Kumar Garodia, Vice Chairman EPC, then Mr. Sharat Mahendra, CEO, JSW Steel Coated Products Limited. Then we will have Mr. P.V. Mohan, Director, Kirby Building Systems, Mr. M.C. Agarwal, ED, Sales and International Trade Division, Mr. B.C. Datta, Hyundai Motors India Limited, and then Mr. Vijay Sharma, Director, General Stainless. I'll give a little introduction of Mr. Arun Kumar Garodia, who is our first speaker, and to give an opening remark. He is the Managing Director of Corona Steel Industry Private Limited, manufacturing and exporting various steel products to various parts of the world with experience of over 4 decades in mixing business, National Vice Chairman of EEPC India, and have remained quite active in the council in various capacities over a period of years. EEPC India is a role model council with over 13,000 members and merchandise exports, 25% approximately by its members. Exports of engineering products has been recorded at $76.3 billion during the year 2019 and 20. Over to you, Arun sir. Please unmute your mic.
Can I start, ma'am?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Please start.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all the panelists, to the participants, and Ms. Monica Bachchan. I thank you for inviting us to this such an important topic today, bridging the gap between steel users and steel producers. First of all, I would like to introduce you to my council, EEPC India, which is the largest council and role model council of the country today, recognized by Prime Minister's office. We have a total share of about 25% to the national merchandise exports, and we are proud of that. Year by year, our exports have been increasing, but last year, due to this situation of COVID during the post mid-March session, the exports fell down. There were hardly any exports. So in the year 2018-19, we had a total export turnover of 81 billion US dollars, whereas it fell down to $76.3 billion in March 20. Had it not been COVID situation, our exports would have definitely crossed $81 billion. Nevertheless, we at Engineering Council, we don't lose our hearts. We always motivate our members, and they are all trustworthy. We have almost about 13,000 members all over the country. And like Jindal Stainless, Jindal, and the major producer, they are all our members. Their contribution has been immense. Even during the lockdown period of April, May, and June, their exports have been quite substantial, and we really recognize that fact, what they have done for the country. I will like to tell you a few things regarding the bridging the gap between the producers and the users. Like for any business, what we require? We require, first of all, we require the zeal to start a business. We require finance. We require the raw material. We require the infrastructure. Now let us come to the finance. Government of India has been extending finance, and RBI has given instruction to most of the banks, I should say the public sector banks and the big private banks, and they have been helping exporting community in a big way. The export finance comes at a reasonable price, and we get an interest equalization also for that, which is to the extent of 3%, and in case of MSME, they get 2%. So the overall manufacturers of MSME, they get the interest equalization of about 5%. So that is one good thing about the exports. The next is about the finance. The interest rates are quite low compared to other parts of the world today. Let us not talk of China, because China is very exception. But if we compare with developed countries also, the rate of interest in India after the equalization effect is given, it is really very good to operate with the international market today. Now we had the COVID situation. So Government of India has come to the rescue of exporting community, as well as many other sections of society who all deserve, all these things. So 20% of the financing is being given to the exporting community as well. As on 29th March, whatever were the utilized balances in the bank facility, exporters are going to get that much money. Not only exporters, all the engineering companies will get that. And that will be a big relief. We are yet to see the light of the day, but I am told many of our members have got the circulation sheet from their bankers. Still, they are awaiting the payments to be credited to the bank account. And I'm sure it will be done very shortly, which will really be the helping hand by Government of India. Today, we have the situation of MSME. We have been fighting with the government. A lot of representations have been made for a very, very long time, for last 4 or 5 years. After the BJP government came into power in 2014, we have been continuously knocking at their doors to change the definition of MSME, especially by way of investment limit and the turnovers. And touch wood, this time, Mr. Nitin Gadkari was very helpful, very assistive. He learned the requirement of the industry. We had several meetings with him, Mr. Piyush Goyal, Steel Minister, everybody. Finally, we see the light of the day. MSME investment limit has been increased to a large extent with the turnover cap they have given there. But one very good thing has been there, the export turnover has been exempted, which is a very big welcome step for the MSME industry. And MSME industry creates a big job earner in the country. And the export of the MSME sector is almost 50% of the national exports, as far as the merchandise is concerned. So we are very thankful to the ministry to give all these exemptions and to change the policy and the definition. Now, one very important subject has been the steel requirement, iron and steel, I should say. And we have been working out with this government for a very long time. And my thanks to our commerce ministers, to steel minister, to DGFT officers. They have taken all the pain. We had parleys or discussions with them days and night together. We have been discussing, giving them presentations. We had many meetings with them. Finally, we are going to see the light of the day. In the last meeting, all the steel producers, major producers, their bosses have also participated in the meeting. And it has been finalized that this scheme is going to take off now. And now it is in the hands of DGFT to issue a notification. Draft notifications have been exchanged with the EPC, and we have given our feedback and everything. small minor irritants are there, I'm sure it will be taken care of. I'll tell you briefly about the scheme. This is a very, very interesting scheme. Today, when MSME exporter exports, manufactures goods and exports to any part of the world, he has to buy the steel at a domestic price from the major producer or the secondary producer. But when this new steel will be available, and this policy will be known as a steel at export parity price of the major producer. So this gives us a major leverage to work. The export parity price will be very different compared to the domestic price that we buy today at. So it is really going to be a big boon for the MSME sector as far as the manufacturing and exports are concerned, because we are looking at the steel which should be cheaper for us. Otherwise, we are not able to compete in the international market. Our neighbors, Chinese, they're very, very strong today, and everywhere they give us a cutthroat competition by way of say 15 to 30% in each and every product. Because when it comes to volume and mass scale production, nobody can really beat China today. We all know that. But nevertheless, we have to try and get into the shoes and give a big boost to our business. Like just now, Monica mentioned about the national steel policy. Government of India has announced the steel policy, and 300 million ton target has been set to be achieved by 2030. So it's not only the major producer will set up their shop, but ultimately they are going to sell the material. They are going to sell the material to domestic consumers. They are going to sell the material to the overseas consumers. So ultimately, they have to sell the material which will come to the domestic section for domestic consumption as well as the mainstream of exports, which is served by mostly MSME sector. So this 300 million tons will be absorbed by all concerned consumers. So we are looking at big expansion of steel business. When steel expands, the iron steel users, as far as MSME is concerned, we have almost 13,000 consumers all over India for exports. There are so many others which are serving only the domestic sector. I'm sure that it is going to give a big boon to the consumer sector, and steel will really be a great thing for future. This COVID time has really taken us aback, and we all are in trouble today, but we have to come out of it. Now I'll talk about the quality and the price things. Price basically are touched upon the new steel policies coming, so the domestic prices are higher, and when we get the steel at export parity price, it will be quite helpful for the exporters. Then as far as the quality is concerned, quality is of immense importance. And what we find, we have been using steel for a very, very long time. I've been in this business for over 5 decades. My family has been in this business for over 7 decades. What we used to see steel in the years, say 1970 or 80, there is a big difference today. We get good quality of steel. We can compare most of the steel with any part of the world today. The best mills of Japan, South Korea, US, Canada, wherever you say. We are getting good quality of steels. That is why our claims have also gone down in the engineering sector. Our customers also can depend upon the Indian steel more than the Chinese steel, I should say. But when it comes to the quality of steel, I would like to point out one thing between user and the producer. The producers, I thank them, I compliment them for bringing up these standards. But still, the international standards sometimes they require in bulk consumption the steel of a standard grade, but with high tensile strength and things like that. If producers could look into that, because China is capitalizing in a big way on that, whether you make it a hot rolled coils, CR coils, or steel wire rods, because that is a basic steel which is consumed by the industry as far as the construction, sheet metal, or fasteners, or building material anywhere. So if steel producers could really come up to that expectation, I think most of the imports, whatever is taking place today, even after safeguard duty and all that, that will still further go down. We don't want to support import of steel into our country, but at times when we require the steel for our export production, we are left with no choice. We have to buy it. There are big sectors in our country like construction, engineering, fabrication, automotive, and the capital goods. All these industries have done greatly, and I think in future, in times to come, these industries are going to bring more and more value addition. Today, construction in our country is definitely at a lower rate due to the COVID situation. Workers are not available and things like that. But I'm sure within next 2 3 months' time, things will all settle down once this COVID is taken care of. Then we have the Swadeshi movement, buy Indian, use Indian. It's a very good thing that has been started by Government of India. Now recently they've announced a policy wherein tenders over, public tenders over 250 crore rupees only international parties, especially China, can participate into that. So there is a restrictive measure. So that is definitely going to give a big boost to the Indian sector. Then we have the competitiveness. We have been talking about competitiveness, that China is the sole factor which is bothering everybody. Otherwise, no steel in the world is very expensive for India. China is the most important factor which we have to combat somehow or other. Chinese, I don't know what model they are playing for last 20 years. I've seen in US and North America, I've been working there for over 5 decades. They have been buying all from India earlier. Slowly China came into the business and they ate up all the pie of the Indian share. And we were helpless. We really could not do anything because ultimately the raw material prices are very cheap over there. And then when they allow for the exports, the engineering powders, they will extend the export rebate. If US will increase the import duty, what China will do, they will reduce the rate of interest, they will increase the export rebates and things like that. They try to match apple to apple. That is why their exports are very buoyant today. Now the situation has become all over the world. The whole world is getting against China, and everybody wants that India should be supported. All foreign companies, the value addition chains and big stores, and everybody is trying to look at India today. We have been supplying to some chain or stores. They have 200 stores, 300 stores in US, and they are all coming to India. They want to develop their business, but the Indian industry has to show equal strength, and we have to fight, shoulder to shoulder, so that we can really go ahead and capitalize on this. With these words, I'll stop my discussion here. I'll give opportunity to my other friends. Thank you, Monica, for giving me a chance.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Then now we will move on to our next panelist, Mr. Sharath Mahendra. I'll give you a little introduction on Mr. Sharath Mahendra. He's the CEO of JSW Steel Coated Products Limited, India's largest coated and value-added steel producer. In his previous assignment, Mr. Mahendra was working as director and COO and was on the board of JSW Energy Limited as director and also on the board of subsidiaries and JV companies of JSW Energy. He has also been on board of APL Apollo Tubes Limited. He has worked with Philips Carbon Black Limited and Yamaha Motors Limited in various capacities. Mr. Mahendra has been a recipient of Hall of Fame Award, London, for Best Marketing and Communication Personnel globally, and his unique work on branding the steel sales channels as JSW Shop was being promoted in Harvard Business School and many Indian Management Institute as a case study. Over to you, Sharath, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Thank you, Monica. And good afternoon to all my panel members and all the delegates in this meeting. And good afternoon to Arunji, Agrawal Saab, Vijay, and Mr. P.V. Mohan. It is really good to hear, Arunji, your detail, what you have detailed very well. Maybe a lot of points were common, so I will skip that. You have reduced my work. But yes, it is really an interesting topic, I'll say today, in today's time, basically, what this Metalogic has done, bringing in the steel producers and the steel users. I see these two as the two ends of the entire value chain. And it is extremely important that all activities, whether by steel producer or steel consumer, it is extremely important and impacts in a significant way the entire value chain. So it is important that we understand each other better, and as a producer and also the steel user understands the producer. So with this, I will just like to say that as we know that we all are going through a highly unprecedented, unexpected time since March 2020. But yes, the positives are, I see the things as positive is that we are seeing signs of economic activities coming back, though it may take some more time. We are at slightly more distant towards coming back to our pre-COVID normalcy, which will take time, but at least the things have started moving, and we should be ready now for the opportunity with the new normals which are going to be there. And because I definitely see the fundamentals of the country, what it was before, what we are experiencing today, continues to remain strong. barring maybe few months, we have seen some slowdown in the economic activities prior to this March, since March, prior to that also. But still, I see fundamentals remain there, and the various actions, some of them which have been highlighted by Arunji also, definitely are something which shows us a very good positive way for which we need to be ready as a steel producer. And we basically are seeing that manufacturing, which we all know that is contributing about 29% of the total GDP. And our Honorable Minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, has announced also with a target to reach 50% contribution by 2025. And here again, the same common topic is that MSMEs, which is extremely important for this number to be achieved. And also in terms of the country as a whole, whether it is employment, because if we see that today MSMEs approximately employ about 120 million people of the population. And once this contribution goes from 29 to 50%, we can see that the opportunity in terms of the employment is huge. Because if we see that last year, these MSMEs, the export was almost about $76 billion, which is less than 1% of the global trade, if we talk of, which is in excess of 8,000. So less than 1%. So this is the opportunity. And we have also, as a steel producer, have identified the challenges being faced by the MSMEs. One of the major topic, which is a common topic, which Arunji also just had said, that buying at domestic price, which is definitely not always for any country, not only in India, is not in line with the international prices. It is more of a demand and the cost factors and others. But and then the steel producers, we including us, we export steel. So we as an organization have decided, rather than exporting steel, we have to be a part of the total value chain to ensure export of engineering goods made by our steel domestically. So for that, I am not going into the details of the modalities because that has been touched upon in terms of the export parity pricing and other things the moment the policy comes. But yes, we at JSW will be visible also very, very soon to all, especially targeting the MSME sector, that what we are doing and what we are preparing for. But yes, this is something which we have taken it as an immediate to medium and long-term strategy to cater to this segment at least till 2025, till the time country achieves 50% target of manufacturing contribution to the GDP. So with this, and for us to be ready also in terms of the capabilities and also in terms of the technology to provide the required grades of steel, which to a large extent, I think the domestic producers have significantly improved upon in terms of the capabilities and deliverables, which is, I think he just joined, Mr. Datta is there from Hyundai. He can definitely vouch for the domestic steel producers in terms of, which is one of the most highest grades of steel, which is the auto grade steels. I think the large percentage is being catered by the domestic producers now, which was not the case few years earlier. So in terms of the technology and the capability to supply specific requirements of grades of high grade steel and all, also Arunji, this is very well noted. And I think we are in a position right now to take care of the majority of the requirement of any grade of steel, to take care, and of course the pricing and the quality of steel has to be such that global competitiveness is there. So with this, I will, because most of the topics are common, I'll not be speaking much, but I will assure that we from the manufacturer side, steel producer side, are fully ready with this special focus, not only by just producing the steel or making the grade, but also as an organization, we are preparing ourselves to cater to this vast segment of MSMEs. If maybe I am not sure, maybe Arunji, maybe the right number, you can change my number also. But as per my calculation, even steel related MSME numbers, though we have not been able to get the exact number, sorry. But yes, in my opinion, this number is more than 1.5 to 2 million, which are in steel related production or fabrication. So we see this as a very, very large percentage in terms of number of customers, which are small customers. So we need to have a vast reach to take care, understand the requirement, because there are going to be vast variety of requirements for each. It is such a large segment. So we are ready to ensure that the product is available at the right time, nearer to the consumers, and with right quality. And pricing and all is a factor which is definitely as per the market, whatever is the export parity pricing and other things. But also one thing to add, not only export, MSME's contribution to the domestic consumption is extremely high. So there also, apart from the pricing which is for the export, we are definitely focusing in a big way to ensure that best of the steel quality, and they should not feel that the SKU size is small and they are not able to get. So we are preparing on all aspects to take care of both export related also, EPC, and also the domestic consumption, which the SME production which is happening. So this is all from my side, and maybe as and when anyone has any question, we'll be ready to answer. Thank you. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Sharad sir. Now we will quickly move to Mr. P.V. Mohan, our next panelist. I'll introduce Mr. P.V. Mohan to everyone. He's a director at Kirby Building Systems. Mr. P.V. Mohan has an experience of more than 27 years in the commercial field of supply chain, operation excellence, purchase and sales and marketing. He also has hands-on experience of setting up new facilities and very techno-commercial person. He joined Kirby Building System India in 2005 in supply chain division and has also served as project director at SAP and director of purchase. Mr. Mohan is currently working as director commercial with Kirby India and spread-heading the sales and marketing construction management group and purchase division dealing with both customers and vendors. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon to my panelists and all the attendees who are there. And thank you, Mr. Arun Gorodia and Sharad Mahindra, for giving so much of data and a lot of information. So, coming to the topic, I'll just, of course, brief you first about Kirby. Kirby Building Systems is a pioneer in steel PEB industry in India. Even we were the first to start pre-engineered steel buildings in India as well as in Middle East. And anything on steel buildings, I think Kirby is synonymous. So a lot of people say that we build Kirby buildings. What they mean actually is steel buildings. So we have two plants in the country, that is in Hyderabad and Haridwar, catering to the India market. We have two plants in Middle East, taking care of Middle East, Africa market. We have another plant in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, taking care of Southeast Asia to Australia. And to give a brief about India, we consume almost 200,000 tons steel. And as you know, it's all steel construction what we use. So coming to the topic of bridging gap between steel users to producers, I'm a user and a lot of people here are producer like Sharad Mahindra and all the people. So in this, we do not want to go into the merits. I know the producers have a lot of strengths, but in this post-COVID situation is what I think is more important right now. And in this post-COVID situation, I feel there is only three things which are very important. That is communication, communication, and communication. Because communicating status of the mill, communicating status of pending orders, communicating what would be the timeline for new orders if at all we are placing, communicating what are the actions you have taken to restart the organization at your end, what type of measures are taken up, communicating to understand, what are the pain points which the end customer has, have a meeting, understand. And in fact, this is a fantastic opportunity that with the present digital technology, what we have, a very good communication setup with the technical team, with the plant team, with the customer, trying to understand what are the interfaces, what are the pain areas which the customer has, so that that can be actioned, and having that can also be a lot of technical meetings on what are the new products you are developing, what are the new things which we are getting in. Maybe there are a lot of products which you already developed, but as a customer, maybe I'm not aware of it. So using this, giving comfort on supply continuity. Basically, materials might be ordered, we are not sure. And in this type of situation, every material what is shipped getting doubly checked so that the quality issue should not be there, because at this time and the productions are itself going at a very minimal level or a low level, and any type of smallest rejection would have a big impact. And second, reducing the lead times and not pushing for MOQ quantities, because based on the customer requirements, we might be trying to push for even smaller lots, and using how to use the digitization. How can we really look at digitization to improve the speed and service to the customers? How we can, in fact, there's a fantastic opportunity, I feel, post-COVID, sitting and understanding how can we use, just for an example, suppose two organizations are on SAP, how our SAP can talk to another SAP, sharing a lot of data. In fact, that today, the most important thing is data and timely data and the speed of data transfer. So how are we going to use this? So basically it is communication, and even, what are the type of actions you're taking, even the material is shipped from your factory. What are the checks you're taking? Just for an example, is your truck driver sanitized? Is it checked fully? What are the processes you have? Just to give that comfort to the end consumer when you're receiving it. So the main issue as on today, I feel, especially in the post-COVID, is how are we communicating? How often are we communicating? How are we giving that comfort to the steel users, saying that this, and coming to, and you can also even give a communication, what are the steel price trends going on, in case you would like to plan any procurement or plan any new order. So this is the type of trend. You may not stick on to the price, but you can at least communicate what would be the trend, and so that type of information would definitely help in fact building a very much stronger relationship. And not only that, it will also lead to a long-term trust developed between two organizations. And as you know, steel users are like, unlike manufacturers, if you really take steel plates, there might be hardly around, if you take the main primary mills, maybe around 6-7 maximum. Whereas for a steel user, he has many competitors who are in the field, whom they have to manage, even whether it is exporters as well. You are competing with the total export market. So the understanding of the end customer requirement is more important. Even it can also mean how developing new products, new grades of steel, and bringing down the overall cost. Maybe the price might be a little higher, but overall cost comes down. So these are some of the things which I feel as a steel user, would be definitely expected from a producer. And I think we can definitely bridge this gap, I feel, only by communicating and increasing the communicating this post-COVID situation.
Right, right.
So this is what I would like to share.
Thank you so much, Mohan sir. Now we will have Mr. MC Agarwal. I'll give you a little introduction on Mr. Agarwal. Mr. MC Agarwal is Executive Director, Sales and International Trade Division at Steel Authority of India Limited. He is responsible for business turnover of about 70,000 crores for domestic and international market for steel products of Steel Authority of India, which is the largest steel producer and supplier in the country. He has a vast experience of steel product marketing spanning of 30 years and has worked with grassroots levels to different capacities covering all states of the country. Also have worked in increasing commercial engagement of the company with countries like Vietnam and South Korea. Have been actively involved in establishing customer engagement and also regular interactions with other producers of steel in the country. Mr. Agarwal, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Monica. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity for speaking to this topic. And good afternoon, Garodia Sahab. Good afternoon, Sarad Mahindra Sahab, PV Mohanji, PC Dattaji, Vijay Sharmaji, and all delegates and participants to this webinar. As you know, I'll start with slightly how we have now last few months, how we have been working in this steel industry. And then I'll go for the what are the gaps, identify the gaps between a producer and customer, and then how we can bridge these gaps. So I'll just take a brief time, but I'll just introduce all these three things to you. Sale, as a sale, we are, you know that we are almost at 21 million tons producing company, and we have been supplying steel to almost all the industries which is related to steel. And all the major projects, rather whether it's a government projects or government icons, in case you see, their steel is available. With that introduction, I'd like to go when we were last year, in case you see 18-19, it was very bad for the steel industry, in case you see the totality. Only the steel industry started picking up the market somewhere in November. But again, in the month of March, when the COVID started, it has started giving the shade to entire steel industry, and we all are struggling, whether it's a producer or whether it's a customer. So again, this bridging the gap becomes more important to that also. But nevertheless, I think within a few days' time, in case I talk for my industry and its total steel industry, which I talk to other producers also, in 8 to 10 days' time, when this COVID-19 started, within 8 to 10 days time, we were not in within 8 days at least, we were not in a position to understand what to do. But within 8-10 days time, we have understood what to do. Because our steel plants, you know, that all major steel producing plants, they have to continue their production. They cannot shut down the productions. All blast furnace has to continue. So minimum level 40-50% production has to go. So first, the choice is whether to produce and shut down the plant for almost 4 to 5 months. So we all decided, let us continue with the production in our plants. And then we started keeping the material, whether it's our stockyard, whether with distributors, whether with the plant location. But within I think within 15 to 20 days time, the things started moving up. People have started looking up. All consumers, what consumers we have in the steel industry related consumers, they all started looking up how to start the business. And by month end of April, I think almost 20-25% consumers have started picking up the business. And in the month of May, in case I say it around 60% business has already come back. And today, if I say steel industry, my 90% consumers has come back to me. And minimum capacity they are working is, somebody is working is 40 to 50%. Even some are at 100%. One buyer media which we have worked out, which Arun Garodia Sahab is well aware. I think there is a lot of help, and we have increased the export like anything. All steel producers have started increasing the export. So that has given slightly a comfort to steel producers in the sense to continue production. At the same time, not much of pressure to the local steel industry, rather local steel consumers here. And in case we talk for this consumers engagement, rather in this period when COVID-19 was there, and that was the major period when we have started engaging the consumers over the video conference. So as my fellow panelist says, digitization, that was a very important tool which we have utilized as entire this COVID-19 period. And I think we have engaged almost all the customers during this period. And that has given an advantage now that relations which we have been with our consumers for last so many years, that has further strengthened. And today that is the reason where we are now. And today at least we have reached to a situation where almost everybody is with same. And in between, as you are aware, as Garodia Sahab has already mentioned, the government has also given a lot of thrust to the how to bring back the economy on track. And steel is a major component in that. And a lot of packages has been given to boost the infrastructures, particularly MSME. There has been a lot of thrust has been given. Agriculture, yes, there has been a lot of thrust has been given. Banks has given a lot of EMIs, bank loans, etc. That thrust has been given. And the most important part from government has come is the railways. They have waived entire dam days and war phases during this period, and that has helped really producers as well as at least I can say all consumers related to steel industry. They all, because nobody was in a position to unload wagons, unload materials, and that has come very handy to all of them. So now, after talking to this, now I'll talk for the identify the gaps. Very fast, I'll run about this. What producer is looking for? Producer is always looking for the volume. The volume has to grow, and volume has to grow with minimum inventory at his end. And third is that profitability has to be there, and minimum credit exposure. These are the requirement of a producer. Now, similar to this, in case we talk about consumers, generally what they expect is minimum inventory. The both even producer and consumer both are looking at minimum inventory. Price sensitivity is definitely there because everybody is looking at profitability. Quality is definitely a barometer, and minimum interest rate and liquidity has to be very, very high. And what Mohan Saab was mentioning, basically now there's an inventory cost is also involved. So in this particular period, and every consumer was looking at how I can minimize my inventory, and my producers can help us to keep my inventory as a minimum level. So there's a lot of requirements which has come, and this has come very handy, and that we were in a position to at least take care of that part also, how to minimize the inventory levels at our consumers. Naturally, we have to take a load on that, and we have to increase our inventory in our stockyard system. Then we have gone for like additional incentives has been given to MSME. Liquidity is again issue for the consumers. Credit interest and free interest period is a requirement. Now, the both are opposite. Producers is looking something else, consumer is looking something else. How to bridge it? Now, is it possible? Yes, it is possible. So at least once we talk for the positive, I'll say a few things which we have taken as a steel industry, and particularly in case I talk for the Steel Authority of India Limited. As a sale, what we have taken, as I mentioned, minimum inventory, we have started keeping the stock in our stockyard system. And the stocks which were required by the consumers, that we have started keeping the stockyard system. So that made life easy of my consumers, and they becomes like, yes, we are comfortable. So their exposure for the holding the inventory, working capital has reduced, and that has helped them. There is a possible, the possible interest-free credits, possible credit periods has been given from our side depending on the volumes of the consumers. So that has also bridged the gap between my consumers. My consumers, I am talking for the as a sale and consumers, but it is true for entire steel industry, and that's why this steel industry has been now coming to the level of almost 80 to 90% production is going to come this month, and it is going to be almost 100% maybe next few months time. As already mentioned, labors etc. issues were there, but still I find that things have been coming on that shape and things are moving.
Right. So I request you to please conclude.
Okay, I'll just say 2-3 points. And like we have waived, like the steel producers have waived the interest where the wagons were lying in the siding. And we have, as a sale, I'll say only one line last, since you want me to conclude, we'll take in the question answer session. We have gone for a lot of MSME development around our steel plants. All our 5 integrated steel plants, the districts have been converted as MSME incentive. The name was given as Ispati Ilakon Ka Vikas, and that sale has come very forward on that, and there's a lot of incentives have been provided by us. Along now, further the incentives which are going to come up with the MSME development, that is separate, but we have already started this scheme almost 6 months back, so that is coming handy to us. Thank you, Monica ji. I think we'll take other things in your question answer session.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Agrawal sir. I'll introduce Mr. Vijay Sharma to you, everyone. Mr. Vijay Sharma is the Director at Jindal Stainless. He is a spokesperson of Jindal Stainless Group, serves as Director of the company. Currently, he is responsible for driving marketing, business development, and corporate affairs for the organization. Mr. Vijay Sharma, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Monica. Namaskar, good afternoon. Being the last one is always a challenge, and it becomes more challenging when you are among such stalwarts, and it is really difficult to find out what remains unspoken. In fact, I had to improvise something in between to change the topic, because the key buzzwords, MSME, COVID, exports, parity, I mean, all these things have been well covered. And Monica, it becomes even more challenging when people would have missed the lunch. So let me try to do some justice to this. This is absolutely right context which has been set today, because in the context of the Atmanirbhar, really the Indian producers and Indian buyers, they are really struggling to learn how to live in the new direction of Make in India, because the ecosystem is still something where there is some dependence on the imported products for the various reasons. But before that, I would like to have few seconds on positioning what exactly is stainless steel. People tend to get confused between stainless steel and steel. Well, stainless steel is part of chapter 72. By volume, it is 3%, but by value, it is about 12 to 15% of steel. So we are much younger brothers, but we add a lot of value. Today, we are here to understand what is a gap between the end users, consumers, and the suppliers. So I will be talking about the producer perspective. It is a fiercely competitive environment today. There is a very, very intricate and complex buying behavior, which has become complicated because of the today's situation, whether it is product attributes, commercials, sellers' behavior, conflicting interest, psychology, and the alliances, and the weightages get changed depending on the situation. We are used to the words like B2B, B2C, B2B2C, but I think everything gets summed up in one acronym, BWH, Business with Humans. The complexity further enhances when we deal with the MSMEs and also the corporates. Depending on whether it is the first M or the second M, the complications become manifold. It hovers between instinct, spot, to highly organized, structured, and also oscillating between the two. Another very tricky dilemma is for the producers to understand what the customer actually desires. But there is a possibility that the customer may be expressing and translating those desires in terms of the traditional model of QCD, quality, cost, and delivery. And whereas when the buying decision happens, the Q gets equal to only the product attributes, C gets attributed to only the price, and D gets attributed to the lead time. However, the domestic producers, I'm trying to compare them with the extra efforts the domestic producers are doing, which somehow remain uncommunicated, and very well said by Mr. P.V. Mohan, that communication part. The other factors within these QC, what the domestic producers are trying to serve to the Indian consumers. It is not only product, it is the application suitability. It is a matter of pride to tell me that we are the world's largest producer of razor blade steel. This is one end of the value chain. And of course, right up to the nuclear applications, Indian industry is capable of supplying the stainless steel. Range and the grades. Today in stainless steel, we make 130 grades, out of which 80 got developed. And I'm thankful to many of our customers, including auto sector, in hand-holding, in helping us in developing. The 80 grades got developed in 2 decades. And out of that, 20 grades are still not regular. We developed and there were no orders. Consistency, transparency, education, and awareness. Today on the Indian roads, there are 4 vans, which are the stainless academies, which are running across the country to teach people the right usage of stainless steel and also to teach the fabrication practices to the local fabricators. Policies, redressal, communication, language, मातृभाषा के अंदर बात करना भी एक बहुत बड़ी सर्विस है. Documentation and the connect, feedback and the reverse feedback. When I come to the cost, it is not the price. It is the cost of acquisition. It is a yields. It is a customization. It is an inventory, and it is a sort of a package including the credit, which the domestic producers are trying to provide to the customers. When we talk about the delivery, in addition to the lead time, OTIF, JIT, MOQ, partial truckloads, smaller releases, visibility of the deliveries. So this is a sort of a complex matrix which a domestic producer is trying to provide to the customers, whereas the customer actually desires is the fair and arm's length behavior. It desires his respect. He desires his recognition, but somehow they are not able to translate it. So the message for producers, including ourselves, is that We need to have the more and more communication. I fully endorse what Mr. Mohan said, that how do we communicate across that these are the services which are being provided by the domestic producers, despite of the fact there are certain big challenges for the domestic producers to build this trust and the brand, and how to ensure that the anti-incumbency factor, people want to try new things without realizing the strength of their current partners. We have been talking about the price a lot, the cost structure of the economy. I personally feel that the cost competitiveness is less of a challenge for the manufacturers. It is more of a challenge for the country at large. If I take only two elements of the cost of capital and also the logistics cost, it makes the Indian producers 10 to 12% incompetitive with respect to outsiders. And also this is true not only for stainless, not only for steel, everything, in fact, the toys, the electrical goods and blah, 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 including our Ganesh ji, jo aaj hum Chin se manga ke puja karte hain. So this is a challenge for the country as such. Our ecosystem is also a challenge. More than 40-50% of my customers, they are in MSME. It depends whether they're first M, S or M. And MSME has got a whole lot of challenges, whether it is labor, whether it is challenge of scale, whether it is challenge of automation, and then the conflicting interest. In our own fraternity of the customers, a utensil manufacturer wants utensil should not be imported, but he wants circles to be imported. Circle manufacturer wants circle should not be imported, but he wants coil to be imported. So this is a dilemma. I strongly feel that domestic producer needs to communicate well, and the consumers need to do better hand holding, because there is a possibility that in this change over time, few things domestic producers might not be in a position to develop. A hand holding is required, and it is not only the price, it is a relationship, recognition of the interdependence and coexistence of the supplier and the producer to ensure that this Make in India concept and Atmanirbharta really happens. And we should be very clear that we are all very critical in this supply chain ecosystem of India. Otherwise, the dependence of import, it will be very difficult to get rid of that. So that was my sort of improvised take on today's topic. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Vijay sir. And we are getting a lot of questions from the audience, and we will take up each question one by one. And I would request all our fellow panelists to respond to these questions. We have one question from Mr. Vinay Chari. He has asked questions from JSW and SAIL in particular. What are the new technologies used by SAIL and JSW for producing steel? Sir.
Is it, can I?
Yeah, you are.
See, when we say in terms of technology, we have to understand what we mean in terms of technology. See, there is a process in terms of steel making, maybe from iron making to steel making to casting, everything. See, when we say technology, it is basically the right quality of steel, the right grade of steel for end application. So it is an end application based development of new grade, which happens in our, we have a product development PDQC, which takes care of what the end use of the product is. And it is not always that what customer is asking and proposing to do, but after understanding the end application, we ourselves, our team, engineering team works on that product development and suggest to the consumer the most cost-effective option to take care of the end requirement of the customer. So when we say any specific technology, there are many, but in terms of when we mean is to meet the end requirement in the changing times and the new requirements to be globally competitive. It has to be a cost-effective solution. And in past, we have been like, just to give you two examples, like there have been one segment which we have been seeing a significant growth and which is largely being catered by the MSMEs is the renewable energy sector, which is the solar parks which are coming in, the solar power plants which are coming in, which involves a lot of steel. It is a very steel intensive structure. So there it was observed that large amount of specific steel required has been coming from Korea and outside India because of the capability issues by the domestic producers. So we requirement and then we developed that steel, and today it is almost all entire requirement is being catered by the domestic suppliers only. At least JSW is taking care of the almost every requirement of this particular sector, which is the future also, and going forward involving MSMEs also. In addition to that, there are many other options also. Like in automobiles, the way the development has happened in last few years, starting from the basics of HSLA grade steel to the most latest steel which are required for the present quality of automobiles which we are seeing in today's time. So technologies are various. On this forum, I think is specific technology to discuss maybe a thing, but yes, understanding the consumer requirement, customer requirement, and suggesting with various options which are cost effective is what we work with this approach. And we have an application engineering department also, which is an interface between the consumer and the plant, which is the PDQC, which is in the development of the new requirements of the country.
Right. Agarwal, sir, you like to comment on this?
Yeah, madam. I think I'll add on from Saras sir. So basically, when we want to talk technology, basically it starts from the end use. So when end use comes to us, we back calculate then how to produce that particular material. And we also have that application engineering department, product development groups, all these things. So in case Mr. Chari has any specific requirements that can be referred separately also, we can definitely reply that. But technology as such, it is a everyday, it's a innovation, because basically what you are looking for and how we can meet out that requirement.
Absolutely. So we have another question from Mr. Nagarajan K. Well, he's asking, India's strength is in our abundant raw material availability. However, technologies adopted till date require high quality coking coal, which is not available domestically but necessarily have to be imported. This has a very major impact on the cost of steel, which needs to be brought down while maintaining the quality if we are to compete with the international market. Why, as a major steel producer, presently second in the world, India has not worked much or at all in developing alternative technology? I think what he is trying to ask basically is, since we are importing coking coal, the cost of steel to the end user is considerably little higher than the import. So if anybody would like to comment on this.
Yeah, I'll just comment, Montaj, in that. Basically, yes, he's right. The moment we go for more of imported coking coal, definitely the cost goes up. But now every producer is looking, because that quality is not available in the country. What we can do, this can be a mixing. So that definitely everyday work is there. Indigenous production as well as imported, both are being mixed, and that work is going on. Even there are a lot of technologies working on that, and that is definitely, it has come down for over a period. But yes, definitely dependency is still there.
Yeah.
Anyone else like to comment on steel prices because of imported
And
raw
also,
material?
like, yeah, to add on what Mr. Agarwal just said, see, it is that one way of seeing the thing is that we are importing coking coal and producing, which is a high cost raw material. At the same time, but we have to understand the steel prices, if we see, watch last few years, last 30 years, have been not a cost plus pricing era has gone. That if my cost goes up, in line with that, the price also goes up. It's a factor, of course, cost is definitely a factor, but it is also a demand supply balancing also. So there are many factors. It is not just that the cost goes up and my price goes up. So it is there, but yes, alternate, definitely the work is on, but right now we have to see if in terms of the technology you're using any alternate process to produce steel also involves cost in terms of the investment and all. So it has to be again a cost effective solution, which is being worked upon, as Mr. Agarwal said. But yes, maybe I see that it is still some time away that we will be definitely in a position to have an alternate to that.
Thank you, sir. So we have a question from Mr. Ankit Mehta. He want to ask question from Mr. Mohan. His question is, Mr. Mohan, how can a steel trading company join your company as an ongoing vendor to cater to your project pan India, and what should be the right point of contact? I think Ankit ji, we can take this question separately. We will move on to another question. So we have another question from Mr. Rahul Chandran. He's asking, with the current situation and as we are picking up from the lockdown, are we in a verge of seeing a recession or a slow economic growth in the post-COVID days? Arunji, you like to comment on this?
See, Mr. Chandran, we all know there is a COVID situation all over the world. India is nothing, it's not out of the world. We all are affected. We have the issues of migrant workers, we have issues of production, we have issues of finances, we have issues of logistics, and so on. Like we were just now talking about, somebody asked about the coking coal imports. So what do we do today? The ash content in the Indian coking coal is so high, we can't work with it. So steel producer has to import, like the thermal power plants. For that, lot of quantity of coal is being imported. Whether the technology is right or wrong is something else, but huge investments have been made in the country, and those imports have to take place. Because if the import does not take place, power will not be generated, and we won't get the power for our industries. So it is very, very pertinent to keep carrying on whatever, like coking coal is being imported, whatever business you are in, please try your heart and put your heart and soul, everything into your business. I'm sure we will come back out of all these problems. We have to have motivation and we have to motivate our team all the time.
That's right. We have question for Vijay sir now. So this question, yeah, I can hear you. So there is a question for you from Gauri Shankar Dubey. He is asking, there is a huge requirement of stainless steel pipes, fittings, fixtures, and specials from Indian oil sector and gas authorities. What are the strategies being taken by to avoid imports, and we can utilize our own stainless steel in this particular industry in oil and gas?
Mr. Shankar, it is a very, very important point, because you see, normally when we talk about the applications and the segments, we tend to use the words like ABC, architecture, building construction, ART, automobile, railway transport, process. But in fact, the tube segment, welded tube segment itself is so huge that it is more than about 30% steel economy in the world. So to us, in fact, it has become a segment on its own itself, whether it is decorative, whether it is industrial, whether it is auto, whether it is a precision. So in India also, there is a lot of capacity available. I believe so, because our downstream customers have a big base of the tube manufacturing. I believe so that about more than 600,000 tons of capacity is available, whereas the utilization is not more than about 60 to 65%, primarily because of the import which is happening. But yes, these manufacturers have been able to create the associations, and they have been able to sensitize the government, because the Indian industry, including pipe and tube, they also need a level playing field. Like when we are talking about the prices, when I talked about the cost competitiveness of a country, I would like to give you a small flavor of what is happening around the world. Today, post 2018, when USA imposed Section 232, the world trade flows became super VUCA. VUCA, in any case, they were. After that, EU came with a safeguard, and after that, everything changed in the world, and every country putting some restrictions on the other. It was only a signal of nationalization, and it is happening at the global platform also. Today, there are about 26 trade remedial initiatives going on the stainless steel material under Chapter 72, and you'll be surprised that out of these 26, more than 60% are post 2018. You will be also surprised that more than 70% out of these 26 include China, and you will also be surprised that more than 60% include Indonesia, which is just 2 years young in the stainless industry. The unfortunate part is that the FTA agreements and also the circumvention which is happening from China through FTA, that is creating a non-level playing field. Indian manufacturers need a fair level playing field for a while, so that we are able to meet the requirements and we are able to have the capacity utilized. We, as the market leader supplying the raw material, we are having the absolute connect with all the downstream customers, which also includes lots of MSME. to create a voice to sensitize the government so that such import, which is primarily like China, non-market economy, giving subsidies to the extent of 20 to 30%, these things get curbed. We need to take up together with the government. And I am very hopeful that the government will recognize this pathetic situation of the Indian manufacturers.
Right. Now we have our next question from Mr. Tarun Bhalla. He is asking, is JSW working on advanced high strength steel AHSS, which will have application in an electric vehicle? Sharad sir.
Yeah. See, we are working on all, as I told you, that this is a continuous process, and as per the consumer requirement, we are definitely working on, and we presently also have that capability to give this advanced HSLA, low alloy steel. And we are supplying also for the skin panels in the current auto majors, also for the skin panels in various cars being manufactured today. So we have that capability. All possible capabilities are there to take care of the requirement of the automobile segment in totality. Maybe we can say more than 90%, 95% of the requirement. And we definitely can assure that yes, the capability to produce, because we understand that in electric vehicles, the key is also, of course, the weight of the car. That is also one of the key factors. So it is very important to have a lightweight, high strength, low alloy steel, advanced high strength, so that we are definitely capable of. And as and when individually, separately, if it is to be discussed, I can be contacted. Our application engineering team will understand the specific requirements and definitely can revert on this.
Agarwal sir, is SAIL is also working on AHSS?
Yeah, we are also working because these are continuous processes, madam. It's like this because all these processes are always on work.
Okay. So we have next question from Mr. Chinmoy Swen. He's asking question from Arunji. He's asking, the availability of cheap raw materials for MSME is not all pancreas, may be one factor, but the cost of capital, overall infrastructure, logistics plays a vital role along with land and labor issues. With overall steel prices now, deregulated products will flow wherever best prices can be realized. Your takes how we are planning to tackle this?
See, it is like this. Definitely, the steel price is not the only criteria to do the business. The raw material is one of the most important component, be it iron, steel, plastic, rubber, or whatever is there. Like to the renewable energy is coming up. So they have their own raw material requirement, whatever it is there. But the capital cost, finance, and logistics and other things, they have equally a lot of meaning. Unless everything is at a proper field, at the equilibrium, we cannot really survive or make money out of our businesses. So we have to make use of the policies very prudently. Like today in the COVID situation, we have to have been using the funds that government is allotting to the MSME sector, the large scale sector. They have their own resources, the pool of funds they have. They can raise their funds overseas also. The cheap funds can be given to them. But as far as the MSME sector is there are a lot of challenges. I definitely support you for that. But still is not the only thing. The criteria for the capital cost, how you borrow money from your bankers, from other institutions. You can go for a new plant setup, then you can involve the CLSS policy also. You get the subsidy in that. But I must tell you, slowly we have to graduate, we have to educate ourselves, our masses have to be educated, we have to come out of this subsidy system. The subsidy system sooner or later has to go away. Any industry, whether big or small, medium, anybody. Because ultimately this is not going to really work for a very long time. We have had experiences wherein our forefathers are all working with the quota system and licensing Raj and all that. Those things have all vanished. If it still was there, we would not have seen what India today is. Due to all these decontrols being taken away, we have expanded so far. And we have to have all the things, in line, and we have to take prudent decisions as far as our raw material, be it an industry, the capital cost of plant and machinery, even the land. If you are setting up a small industry, you cannot go and buy a land of 20 crore rupees. You have to buy a smaller, cheaper land and set up your industry. because the industry must suffice, the return on investment. So that is my take on that.
Right. So we have another question
Yeah.
from
And
Mr.
Monica,
Yeah.
I will like, Monica, I like to add what Arunji is very rightly said. See, these subsidies and other, depending on the government support, and whether in terms of investment or anything, is these are certain things which are policy matters, which
Right.
we cannot plan something which is for a period horizon of 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I do with that assumption today, and after 5 years, something changes, the policy changes. These are policy matters. Changes. What happens to my business, which I have planned for a period of 20 years? So I think we have to go away with that mentality of subsidy. Efficiencies we have to build quality standards, and then work on, if we are thinking global, we have to think big rather than thinking small in terms of subsidy, is what my take also is.
Absolutely, sir. We have another question from Mr. Rajendra Pokhrana. Cement is doing well at the moment, but not steel. We don't see much requirement of TMT compared to cement, which is gaining prices also beside volumes. How is the disparity this time as both the items move in past a similar manner, cement and TMTs? Anyone can comment on this.
Shall I respond to it?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah, Agrawal sir, I think it was appropriate.
Yeah, it's basically, yes, what he says, cement and TMT goes together, but it's not necessary. When we are talking for a steel consumption to increase and from 70 kg per capita to go to 225 kg and at least to 160 kg, then definitely cement will not come along with the TMT, what TMT will go out. So definitely this can vary, but yes, conventionally, if you say cement and steel, TMT both goes together, but it is not necessary. And TMT, we definitely something has slowed down for almost last 7-8 days, not before. Last only 7-8 days, this difference has come because there are a lot of labor issues, and there are a lot of laborers have migrated here and there. Now I think people are coming back. And July is generally month also where this TMT requirements are less in the market. So I think it's not a very longer phenomena. TMT and definitely one has to be prepared. The cement and TMT can go differently also.
So anyone else would like to comment? Okay, we'll move on to another question. We have a question from Mr. S.K. Chaurasia. He is from NMDC. He like to ask, due to present situation at China border, what is a way forward to supply more than 25T casting, as 25T casting manufacturer in India are very less? Any answers?
Can I say on this?
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chaurasia, the way I take it is pre-casted products, there is a huge demand all over the world. Western countries, they have shifted their their reconstruction systems. Most of the, like the shopping malls or the fencing or maybe even the buildings, they are all coming up with the precast materials. So there is a wide scope in that business, no doubt about it. And cement is the major criteria of usage. I'm told even in India, one of the companies in Chhattisgarh somewhere, they have set up a big plant for this. But the logistics is the major issue. You have to be very close to your source of the raw material as well as the consumption center. Sitting in, say, south of India, you cannot supply to the state of Jammu because that logistics will eat away all the material of it. So you have to be very, very careful with that. But definitely there is a huge scope for this pre-stressed concrete material.
Mohan sir, we have a question from you from Mr. Vijay. He is asking, since Kirby is procuring so much of steel, are you also importing?
No, we are not importing. I think the domestic players are good enough. Yes, we were importing maybe around maybe more than a decade back, but thanks to all the mills, they've all upgraded and they can meet all the special requirements, not only of the main steel, also even of the coated products like alu-zinc products and all. Like alu-zinc, JSW has developed that, and in fact from here we are exporting now to our other plants. So thanks to Sharad Mahindra, he has taken that initiative at that time. So now we export alu-zinc, which we were importing. So we don't really find any reason of imports now.
Okay, thank you.
And coming to, I think I agree with Mr. Arun Garodia on the pre-stressed concrete, because pre-stressed is really gaining importance, but the main challenge is logistics and in transportation, considering roads. You know, any smallest crack or a smallest defect and getting into a big building, you know, we have a very different type of thing. So for pre-stressed concrete, the biggest challenge is the distance from the final destination, that is system of the final consumption is very important.
We have a question.
That is where, and the second important aspect is that compared to steel is much more seismic resistant, and it has got that flexibility as compared to pre-stressed.
Hona bhi chahiye, because in Delhi we have got a warning of earthquake. Anyways, we will move on to another question. We have it from Mr. O.P. Sumani. He is asking, in India, do we manufacture niobium and vanadium steel in India? I think these are some products. Anyone like to comment on this?
No. I'll tell. Yes, we do produce, and these are not products. These are basically the alloys for special steels. And to achieve the mechanical and the metallurgical properties, depending on the thickness of the steel, if the kind of YSTS and other properties which are required in steel, especially in higher thickness steel, to achieve those properties, apart from the metallurgical process, vanadium, niobium, these are costly alloys, but these are required for very special high grade of steel, which is also in the API grade normally. API, this X70, X65 grades, which are oil and gas pipe and tube kind of steel, which is required. There, niobium and vanadium, and this is very, very commonly that technology is already available, wherein Indian steel mills can produce, whether it is Steel Authority or JSW or any other. I think we are in a position to produce by using these alloys.
So we
are already using that as a.
Mohan sir is already using. Kirby is utilizing it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. We have next question from Mr. Hanvinder Singh Chatwal. He's asking, are Indian steel producers now capable of producing high-end CRGO steel to meet requirements of electrical industry? Agarwal ji, this question is for you.
The CRGO steel at the sale we are not manufacturing. So.
Okay. So Sharad sir, if you want to take up this question.
We maybe I will not right now. I'll not like to comment, but yes, we are in the process of development, and we should be ready in terms of CRGO steel very, very soon. Okay. This I can say. Yes.
Fine. We will move on to next question from Mr. Ronak Pokarna. He's asking, what will be the effect on demand for steel due to ongoing China product boycott movement? Anyone can? Yeah, Vijay sir, please.
I will give you a little.
For steel is obviously there. There cannot be a less demand of steel because the whole world is looking at extended activities. So India is in the process of development and growing. Like the new targets that we have been given to the industry, whether it's a user industry or the producer industry, everybody is trying to expand in a big way. So there is not going to be any shortage of steel. If the steel is there, we can definitely produce more and more materials, or more factories will develop here in India. We can export more and import less.
Vijay sir, you like to?
Yeah. I will like to add a perspective here. You see, sure. China or no China, the way Indian government vision is there, 2 to 3 trillion in 5 years and 3 to 5 trillion again in 5 years. and also government recognizing that the country needs to be competitive. So 16 crore, $1.4 trillion equivalent investment plan into NIP to build the infrastructure that essentially needs steel, and also steel as well as stainless steel having per capita consumption of 1/3 as compared to the world, despite of being the second largest, both of them. So there is only one way, that is going forward. And in fact, today, pre this session, I was in a webinar attended by Honorable Minister Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji and Honorable Minister of State Shri Kulaste ji, that the discussions are happening that how do we get rid of concrete structures, even that that the prime ministers, that Niwas Yojana, how do we make a steel structure usable in that? Government is recognizing that without steel, without infra, the economy cannot move forward. So China needs to be definitely stopped, which is going to happen. World has stopped China. China is a non-market economy. I'm sorry to say, rogue. So China, no China. Steel and obviously stainless steel. Only one way forward.
Mohan sir, you like to comment?
I have to add one point here. Actually, there is no impact of Chinese steel to India for two reasons. One, of course, India has already implemented anti-dumping duty. So there is no material of China which was as such coming in a big way, which could have impacted. So frankly, after this, there would not be any issue. I don't think there is a major issue onto the Indian market because of China banning. And coming to what Mr. Vijay Sharma was telling about construction of steel into housing and all, yes, there is, if at all, we are normally used to the concrete or a wet construction we call, where we use a lot of natural resources of limestone, that is cement, then water, for a lot of water for curing, which actually for drinking itself we are struggling, and sand, which is also a natural resource. So these are becoming very, very acute shortages are coming up. So definitely steel is the answer. Only the issue is that acceptability, which is actually growing now compared to last maybe 2 decades back. And we definitely see a lot of steel structures coming into play, so that the per capita consumption of steel will go up in this way, that is completely using, even in a normal wet construction, you use only tar steel, but the percentage of steel in the total construction is less as compared to a complete steel structure.
Right, sir. So
I'll also just add one line, last line here on this import of China, because today, if you see, we are exporting to China, and today, whatever capacity, we are not talking that 300 million tons what we have planned for 2030. Even today's capacity of almost 135 million tons, we are not utilizing in full. So we have sufficient capacity available to take out the requirement of India. And even we grow this per capita consumption of 70 kg to say 150 or 160, whatever. Then also we have already had the plan of 2030, that 300 million. I don't feel we are dependent on China or any country for steel particularly. Maybe some grades here and there, that's a different case. But that can also be developed in India in case it is required, or it is warranted.
So my next question is related to your answer only. So this question is from Mr. Rishabh Sharma. He's asking 300 million ton by 2030 will still be the target, or will it be revised?
Yeah, shall I respond to you?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. This is basically, this target has been made based on certain parameters and certain research. So this target still remains. Prima facie, if you see exactly 300 million tons will be the target, I don't know whether that will happen exactly 300 million tons, but we are definitely moving towards increase in the capacity of steel. And every producer is looking that capacity increase. Only thing is now, last year, somehow some slowdown has come in steel industry. And maybe this COVID now something has gone wrong, maybe some more time. But otherwise, steel industry is going to grow. And the target remains that 300 million tons will remain.
Sir, we have one question from Mr. Pawan Sai Kumar from Sandur. He is asking with regards to coal prices. Uh, what is the future of imported coal prices, and how steel companies are going to handle it?
Shall I
Yes, please.
see? You see the coal prices. What we see, the imported coal prices. We see this to be a range-bound movement only. See, if we see coal, primarily the price is driven not only for steel, but in the country we are a large importer of steel, coal overall, whether it is thermal coal or coking coal or anthracite, all the thing. But a large portion of a very large portion goes in the power generation, even in the steel plants, which drives the pricing and the demand. And the way we have seen the economic activity slowdown, global slowdown, or a stoppage during this COVID, that was just a trailer, I will say, because entire world is moving towards renewable energy. And today, if you see in India, it is more than 80% of the power generation in terms of the unit consumed, not the capacity. Because renewable, the power capacity utilization factor is very low. In solar, it is 28%, 30%, not 25, 27%. But overall, in terms of the consumption, unit consumption of power, more than 80% still is thermal. And the direction in which we are moving, adding more of renewable energy, which is a must also as per the climate pact, which is there for all the countries. So coal consumption is going to reduce in the coming times, which will definitely put a pressure on the coal pricing. But today what we see that there are certain minimum cost of mining. After that, the miners stop the production. They don't produce, they wait, because it is there lying in the earth. Once the price improves, again they start. To some extent, so there is what the present levels, if we see the API 4 index for thermal coal around $54, $55, maybe plus it may go up to $60, $65, $70 at the most, or it may come down by $5, $7. But this is the price at which we see going forward the coal to remain at, or slightly on a lower only. We don't see much other than the seasonal spikes or certain spikes we will see, but I don't think that there is any significant change in coal prices.
We have a very interesting question from Mr. Amitabh Ray. He is asking, like, we are boycotting so many things from China. What if tomorrow China start boycotting India's exports to China? Like we import iron ore and steel. Yeah.
Can I say?
Yes.
Well, let us see the total trade statistics between India and China of the last year. We have a trade deficit of almost $60 billion with China. So where are we today? We are hardly exporting anything to China. We are just exporting to the tune of 17 or $18 billion, whereas our imports are huge. That is why there is a trade deficit of $60 billion. So China is not a big consideration for our exports as such. Yes, of course, we will definitely like to keep China as our market, but given the situation currently, even if China stops buying from India, it is not really going to create a very, very big factor. As it is, government of India has been trying for the last 5, 6 years, 7 years, tooth and nail, they're fighting with Chinese to introduce Indian pharma, to introduce Indian agro products, to introduce the dairy products, but Chinese are not letting them happen there. So what about other things? If other things really don't go to China in a very big way, it hardly matters. The whole world is open for us. Why do we want to have total dependence on export or import from China? Even what imports are coming from China today, it is all, I will not say everything is rubbish, but at least 50% of the things are just totally below standard, inferior material which is coming. Because our consumer industry is totally taken for a ride. They're trying to sell cheap and make money out of it. I don't know what mechanism they are working with. But ultimately, our country's capital is going down the drain with that. Why can't we produce those things in our country here?
Right, absolutely. And
yeah. And also to add, this is very interesting what Arunji said. To add on to this is, we have to understand that the amount of value of imports from China, so it is a bigger impact, though of course it may be not a very significant portion of the total value of business for China, but still for India, it is not going to. The only challenge is that in certain sectors, our dependence on China is extreme. I'll give one example there, but yes, this has been foreseen. It is not today or because of COVID or because of this China issue. Maybe about a year back, Government of India has started focusing on that. To give you an example, that about 8 to 9 gigawatt of solar capacity addition is happening in India. 8,000 to 9,000 megawatt every year. And our capacity of module manufacturing is only about 3 gigawatt, 3,000 megawatt. So without China, we can go to Europe or US, but then the prices are, say, 1.5 times or double. It makes the power cost unviable for the industry. So, but yes, government has already come out with very, very good options, and already those are under finalization, that the domestic capacities are to be set up, and we have to reduce our dependence on China. So there are certain segments where we have to be careful in terms of our planning, if that happens, but we are talking of extremes, which may not be the case. So we have to develop our own capability within the country. When we say that Atmanirbhar, these are certain examples that where we have to really work on.
Referring to a news which we posted 2 days back on our Metallurgic group, there are two things. As per WSA, that Indian steel production in May has gone down by 39%. And there was another news, supporting it, that out of whatever steel we have produced in this financial year, 48% of the steel has been exported to China.
Yeah, true. Maybe I'll just, maybe Agarwal Sahab or Vijay can add. I'll just like to say, and taking a clue from what Agarwal Sahab just said some time back, yes, it is being exported. You have to understand the process of steel making. I have to run the plant at a certain minimum capacity to cater to the reduced requirement of domestic consumers also. If I don't export and I try to service only the domestic customers, I may not be able to meet the schedules and the required production levels, which are significantly low because of the situation we are in. So that is why it is as a mix, and these are exceptional numbers which have been highlighted, and not to be taken as a trend or anything. It is just, and we will see reduction immediately, maybe June only may show you reduced number of exports, is what I feel the way domestic pickup is happening.
Vijay sir, you like to add, or Agarwal sir?
Yeah, I would like to just add. You see, why exports? That is the question. I strongly believe that all of us here, for us, domestic is a passion, and exports is there for certain reasons. That could be international branding, that could be learning from the international benchmarking, that could be temporarily surplus capacities, that could be a strategy that instead of disturbing the prices in India because there is onslaught from countries in Southeast Asia specifically, there are multiple reasons. So we going to China today, it's a rightly said by Sharad, is it temporary phenomena? I strongly believe that. But traditionally speaking, in India, I'm talking about stainless steel, like we have been exporting about 20% of our products. And out of that 20%, 50% has been Europe. And out of that 50% has been North Europe, like Germany. So it is a benchmarking for the quality. It is a benchmarking for the behavior and the practices. And why Indian manufacturers got an opportunity, including us, to do something better during the COVID period while exporting enhanced quantities was only because that over the years we have been able to build a trust among our buyers in foreign countries, and we could get a chance here. Otherwise, going to China, it's very weird situation. So I totally echo with Sharad. Let's encash it. But yes, the moment the demand thing happens back in India, it's our passion. We have to serve domestic customers first.
Okay, we will take one or two questions more, and then we will conclude the session because I'm getting so many questions. There's so much, people are so enthusiastic about it. We have one question from Mr. Rakesh Roshan. He's asking any possibility of AD on stainless steel from Japan, which is under investigation, Mr. Sharma.
Yeah. Okay. It's a little technical subject. Okay. Any country exporting to India, not at the level playing field, is eligible for a trade remedy initiative. This is what the book says. And Japan also is eligible. Their prices in Japan are much higher than their prices in India. But there are certain words like LDR, it is called lesser duty rule, which with great reluctance, Commerce Ministry agreed. It, I believe, is lying on the table of Finance Ministry. Till the time that LDR rule is not removed, there would be certain delays. And if China is dumping into India, then why not? Or if Japan is dumping into India, then why not? But it is a matter of creating a level playing field.
Okay. We will quickly take one more question. We have a question from Mr. Naval Sood. He's asking, understand that imported defective electro-galvanized material after getting color coated in India is affecting PPGI domestic market. What is the opinion? I think it's for Sharad. Sharad, would you like to comment?
Monica, can you repeat? I was lost in between.
Yeah. So his question is, understand that imported defective electro-galvanized material after getting color coated in India is affecting PPGL domestic market. What is your opinion?
Yes, definitely those have been the concerns, but we have to say that specifically if the question means only electro-galvanized color coated, and the color coated being compared, the PPGI, PPGL may not be the right comparison, because electro galvanized is a different product rather than pre-painted galvanized or pre-painted galvanized. Electro galvanized is generally in comparatively lower thickness with very lower coating for very specific application. And just to tell you that this is a product which was being used by appliance industry some time back, and which they have moved in quite a significant percentage to the pre-painted galvanized products from domestic steel mill, which was earlier being imported by the appliance industry. So, of course, defectives and other things which are coming in, and I think our pursuance, rather than not only the solution of putting anti-dumping or safeguard, is always, we don't believe is only the solution. It is the quality orders which are very important. Once we are talking of MSMEs going global competitiveness, and then using these kind of defective material. This is the same being faced. The defective material, the rejected material in the tin also. Import which is happening, and when we compare what here India, such a low quality of steel which has been coming, tin is coming also. So that is a concern. So we are more worried to have, government should have certain quality orders rather than just the pricing. And under those quality orders only, these products are not going to qualify. So definitely this is a concern, but this is a small portion. And we feel that with the experience of what we have the capability to give to the market now, I think consumers themselves are moving from these defectives to the prime material from domestic producers.
Agarwal sir, we have a question from Mr. Sushil Kumar. He is from Government of Telangana. He is asking, I would like to know the ratio of domestic consumption for finished products as against the export of iron ore raw material to the other countries. So, the installed capacity of finished products and consumption of iron ore.
Getting the question clearly, looking for iron ore export?
He is asking installed capacity of finished products in India, and what is the consumption of iron ore in steel industry? As in, because he's from government of Telangana, he's a DMG, so he looks after the mining part. So I think his question is regarding how much we are producing iron ore and how much we are consuming in steel industry. All I understand.
Iron ore consumption is basically simple. He has to multiply 1.6 times for the ton, whatever we are making this steel. That's all.
Okay. Sir, एक last question और ले लेते हैं. I'm getting a lot of requests.
Monica, what Agarwal Saab just said, just to tell you that our last year, if we take the number, the production, crude steel production was close to 109 million. So 109 million multiplied by a ballpark number of 1.6 is the million tons of iron ore consumed in India.
So I hope Sushil sir has got the answer. I think now we should conclude the session. And for concluding, I would request Vijay Sharma sir to present the concluding remarks.
Thank you for this honor. I think it was a great learning experience among the stalwarts, and I also hope that the attendees got the right responses. But in any case, on behalf of the panelists, I can extend this request that in case there is something which remained unanswered or which was something which somebody could not ask in this forum, through Monica, we could be connected. And once again, I think all of us strongly believe that Atmanirbhar means passion for India. Exports only when we have the surplus, and definitely, though there could be a little conflicting views among the panelists also, the level playing field, because I'm very sure when we talk about the competitiveness of Indian manufacturers at EBITDA level, we are even better than many of the Europeans and other countries. But when we come to the support which some countries provide to their manufacturers, and there maybe industry needs a little more hand-holding. But yes, industry recognizes that MSME and the downstream customers, they are very, very critical for us. We try a lot, we will do better hand-holding, and I think together we'll be able to find the solutions. In case 1 or 2% of some material which is yet to be developed in India, we can do it together. The way we got some very, very encouraging views from Mr. Mohan that industry seems to be doing well. So thank you for this support, and thank you to the attendees on behalf of Monica and Metallurgy. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
sir.
very much.
I would like to inform everyone that this particular webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available on our official YouTube channel. After this webinar, we will also be making a report which we will circulate to all the participants and speakers. And now my sincere thanks to Arunji. My sincere thanks to Mr. Sharad Mahendra, Mr. MC Agarwal, Mr. PV Mohan, Mr. Vijay Sharma, and also thanks to Mr. BC Datta, who could not join us because of his technical glitch, and a special thanks to our wonderful audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.